Sometimes the richest people in the world are the loneliest. Sometimes it takes a child to show us what we have lost along the way. Helena had everything money could buy. A mansion with 30 rooms, servants who came and went like shadows, and bank accounts that never ran empty. But when she walked through her grand hallways, nobody called her name with love. Nobody waited for her at the dinner table. Then one day, a little girl with paint on her fingers gave her a simple drawing. Just crayons on paper, nothing more. But what Helena saw in that picture broke her heart wide open and changed everything she thought she knew about life. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are from, and if this story moves you, please like and subscribe, because what happens next will surprise you. Sometimes the richest people in the world are the loneliest. Sometimes it takes a child to show us what we have lost along the way. Helena had everything money could buy, a mansion with 30 rooms, servants who came and went like shadows, and bank accounts that never ran empty. But when she walked through her grand hallways, nobody called her name with love. Nobody waited for her at the dinner table. Then one day, a little girl with paint on her fingers gave her a simple drawing. Just crayons on paper. Nothing more. But what Helena saw in that picture broke her heart wide open and changed everything she thought she knew about life. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are from, and if this story moves you, please like and subscribe, because what happens next will surprise you. The mansion stood at the end of a long gravel driveway, hidden behind iron gates and tall oak trees that had been there for over 100 years. It was the kind of house that people drove past slowly, craning their necks to catch a glimpse through the leaves. 3 stories of white stone, windows that gleamed like diamonds in the afternoon sun, and gardens so perfect they looked like paintings. This was the Riverside estate, and it had been in the same family for 4 generations. Now it belonged to Helena, and Helena alone. She was 47 years old, though most people would have guessed she was younger. Money had a way of preserving things, even people. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a neat twist, not a strand out of place. She wore tailored suits in shades of grey and navy, pearls at her throat, and shoes that clicked sharply against the marble floors when she walked. Everything about Helena was controlled, measured, perfect. She had learned early in life that showing emotion was a weakness, and weakness was something she could not afford. The house itself reflected this same careful precision. Every room was decorated with antiques that cost more than most people earned in a year. Crystal vases held fresh flowers that were replaced every 3 days. Oil paintings hung on walls covered in silk wallpaper. The furniture was the kind you were almost afraid to sit on, all carved wood and velvet cushions that had never known the weight of a child at play. In the library, leather-bound books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, though Helena rarely read them. They were there because they had always been there, because that was what you did when you had a library in a house like this. The kitchen was enormous, with marble countertops and copper pots hanging from hooks, though Helena never cooked. She had people for that. She had people for everything. A cook who came in the mornings and left meals in the refrigerator. A gardener who tended the roses and trimmed the hedges. A driver who took her wherever she needed to go. And Anna, the cleaning woman, who came 3 times a week to dust and polish and make sure everything stayed as pristine as Helena demanded. Helena had inherited all of this 10 years ago, when her father died. Charles Whitmore had been a cold man, distant and demanding, who believed that love was something you earned through achievement and obedience. He had built his fortune in real estate and investments, turning a modest inheritance into an empire. But he had never learned how to be warm, how to hold his daughter when she cried, how to tell her she was loved just for being herself. Helena's mother had died when she was only 8 years old. She remembered very little about her, just fragments, really. The smell of lavender perfume, a soft voice singing lullabies, hands that were gentle when they brushed her hair. After her mother died, the house became quieter. Her father threw himself into his work, and Helena was left in the care of nannies and tutors who taught her mathematics and French and piano, but never taught her how to laugh or play, or simply be a child. She learned instead to be good, to be quiet, to be perfect. She learned that if she wanted her father's attention, she had to earn top marks in school, to sit properly at dinner, to never make a mess or a fuss. And so she became the daughter he wanted, polished and proper and alone. Now, all these years later, she lived in the same house where she had grown up. She walked the same hallways where she had once waited for her father to come home from work, hoping he might have time to say goodnight. She ate dinner at the same long table where she had sat as a girl, watching her food grow cold while her father read the newspaper and never looked up. The house was hers now, but it had never felt like home. It felt like a museum, beautiful and cold, where she was both curator and exhibit. Her days followed the same pattern, week after week, month after month. She woke at 6 in the morning, had coffee brought to her room by the cook, reviewed financial documents and correspondence from her lawyers. The fortune her father had left her required management, and Helena was meticulous about such things. She attended charity galas because that was what women in her position did. She sat on the boards of museums and hospitals, wrote checks to causes she barely understood, smiled for photographs in the society pages. People called her generous, but the truth was simpler than that. The money meant nothing to her. It was just numbers in an account, zeros that added up to a life she had never chosen. She had friends, or at least people she had known for years who called themselves her friends. They met for lunch at expensive restaurants, talked about their vacations and their investments and their latest acquisitions. But these conversations never went deeper than the surface. Nobody asked Helena how she really felt. Nobody seemed to notice the sadness that lived behind her careful smile. And she never offered to show them. She had learned long ago that vulnerability was dangerous, that opening your heart only meant giving someone the power to break it. So she kept her distance, even from the people who claimed to care about her. She was always polite, always gracious, but never truly present. It was safer that way. Lonelier, perhaps, but safer. Anna had been cleaning the Riverside estate for just over a year. She was in her early 30s, a woman with tired eyes and work-worn hands, who never complained about the long hours or the endless tasks. Helena knew very little about her, and that was by design. She preferred to keep the staff at a distance, to maintain a professional boundary that made it easier to remember they were employees, not companions. But Anna was different from the others somehow. She worked with a quiet dignity, never rushed, never cut corners. She hummed softly while she polished the silver, old songs that Helena didn't recognize, and she always left little touches that showed she cared about the work itself, not just the paycheck. A vase moved slightly to catch better light. Cushions fluffed just so. Small gestures that most people would never notice, but Helena did. One morning in late September, Anna arrived with a child in tow. Helena was in her office reviewing quarterly reports when she heard voices in the hallway. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption, and saw Anna standing there with a little girl holding her hand. The child was perhaps 6 years old, small for her age, with dark curls that tumbled past her shoulders and eyes that seemed too large for her face. She wore a faded pink dress and scuffed sneakers, and she clutched a battered backpack against her chest like it held all her treasures. Anna looked apologetic. Her regular babysitter had cancelled at the last minute, she explained, and she had no one else to watch her daughter. She promised the child would be no trouble, would sit quietly and not disturb anything. Helena wanted to say no. The house was not a place for children. Children were noisy and messy and unpredictable. But something about the way Anna asked, with such quiet desperation, made her pause. She found herself nodding, giving permission, though she warned that the child must stay out of the way. Anna thanked her, relief washing across her face, and led her daughter down the hallway toward the east wing, where she would be cleaning that morning. The little girl's name was Marie. Helena learned this later, overhearing Anna speak to her in gentle tones while they worked. Marie was a quiet child, far quieter than Helena would have expected. She sat in the corner of whatever room her mother was cleaning, cross-legged on the floor, and drew pictures in a notebook she had pulled from her backpack. She had a small tin of crayons, the cheap kind you could buy at any store, with some of the colors worn down to nubs. But she worked with intense concentration, her tongue poking out slightly as she bent over her drawings, lost in a world of her own making. Helena found herself watching the child when she thought no one was looking. There was something about Marie that pulled at something deep inside her, something she had buried long ago. The way the girl hummed the same soft songs her mother did. The way she looked up at Anna, with such pure love and trust. The way she seemed content with so little, finding joy in colored wax and paper. It reminded Helena of something she had almost forgotten. There had been a time, before her mother died, when she too had loved to draw. Her mother had given her a set of watercolors for her 7th birthday, and she had spent hours painting flowers and birds and imaginary castles. Her mother had hung every picture on the refrigerator, had told her she was talented, had sat beside her and painted her own clumsy flowers so they could create together. After her mother died, Helena had put the paints away. Her father had no interest in such things. He had told her that art was frivolous, that she needed to focus on practical subjects. So she had stopped painting, stopped drawing, stopped letting herself dream in colors. She had become the serious, studious girl her father wanted, and in the process she had lost something essential. Now, watching Marie draw with such innocent joy, she felt the ghost of that loss. It was a physical ache, settling somewhere in her chest. She turned away, went back to her desk, tried to focus on the numbers and reports in front of her. But her mind kept drifting back to the little girl in the hallway, to the sound of crayons scratching against paper, to the soft humming that filled the spaces between silence. That evening, after Anna and Marie had gone home, Helena found herself walking through the house with fresh eyes. She looked at the paintings on the walls, expensive pieces by famous artists that her father had collected. They were beautiful, technically perfect, but they were cold. They had been chosen not because they moved the soul, but because they impressed visitors. She realized she had never hung anything on these walls that she had chosen herself, nothing that spoke to her heart rather than her status. The house was full of beautiful things, but none of them were truly hers. They were her father's legacy, his taste, his values. She had simply inherited them along with everything else, never stopping to ask what she herself wanted or needed. In her bedroom, she opened the bottom drawer of her dresser, the one she never touched. Buried beneath old sweaters was a small wooden box. And inside that box was a silver locket. She lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of it in her palm. The locket had belonged to her mother. Inside was a tiny photograph, faded now with age, showing a young woman with a gentle smile and eyes full of warmth. Helena had not looked at this picture in years. It hurt too much, this reminder of what she had lost. But tonight, she let herself look, really look, at her mother's face. She tried to remember what it had felt like to be loved like that, unconditionally and completely. She tried to remember what it had felt like to be a child who believed the world was good and safe and full of possibility. The memories were fuzzy now, worn thin by time and grief. But they were there, buried deep, waiting to be remembered. She closed the locket and held it against her chest, and for just a moment she let herself feel the weight of all those lonely years. Then she put it back in the drawer, back under the sweaters, back where it belonged in the past. She went to bed that night as she always did, in a room that was perfect and empty, and she dreamed of nothing at all. Anna brought Marie with her twice more that week, and then it became a regular arrangement. The babysitter had taken another job, Anna explained quietly, and she could not afford the rates at the daycare center. Helena said nothing, simply nodded her permission. She told herself it was pragmatic, that Anna was a good worker, and she did not want to lose her over something so trivial. But the truth was more complicated than that. She had begun to look forward to the sound of small footsteps in the hallway, to the quiet presence of the child who sat and drew while her mother worked. Marie never disturbed anything, never touched what she should not touch, never demanded attention. She existed in her own small world, content with her crayons and paper, occasionally looking up to smile at her mother with such pure love that it made Helena's chest tighten. The weeks passed, autumn deepening into the kind of golden October that made even the coldest hearts remember warmth. The trees in the garden turned brilliant shades of amber and crimson, and the afternoon light slanted through the windows in a way that made the dust motes dance like tiny stars. Helena found herself wandering more often to wherever Anna was working, always with some excuse. She needed to check that a particular room had been properly cleaned. She wanted to discuss the schedule for next week. But really, she just wanted to be near the quiet hum of normalcy that Anna and Marie brought with them. She began to notice small details she had missed before. The way Anna always packed 2 sandwiches in her lunch bag, cutting one into small triangles for Marie. The way Marie would save the best crayon, the brightest red, to draw hearts on the pictures she made for her mother. The way they looked at each other, speaking in a language deeper than words. The kind of connection that comes from truly knowing and being known. One afternoon, Helena was passing through the music room when she heard singing. It was Marie's voice, high and sweet and slightly off-key, singing some children's song about sunshine and rainbows. Anna joined in, her voice blending with her daughter's, and together they made something beautiful out of something simple. Helena stopped in the doorway, hidden from view, and listened. She could not remember the last time she had heard singing in this house. Her father had not approved of such frivolity. Music was for concerts, performed by professionals in formal settings, not for spontaneous joy in the middle of an ordinary day. But listening to Anna and Marie, she realized what she had missed. Not just music, but the freedom to make noise, to be silly, to express happiness without worrying whether it was proper or appropriate. She stood there for a long moment, feeling something crack open inside her, some wall she had built so carefully beginning to crumble. She turned to leave, not wanting to intrude on their moment, and found herself face to face with Marie. The child had wandered out of the room, following her mother's voice, and now she stood in the hallway, looking up at Helena with those enormous dark eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marie smiled, a gap-toothed grin that transformed her whole face, and said hello. Helena, caught off guard, found herself smiling back. It was automatic, instinctive, the kind of response that came before you could think to guard against it. "Hello," she said, her voice softer than usual. Marie tilted her head, studying Helena with the frank curiosity of children who have not yet learned to hide what they are thinking. "You have a pretty house," Marie said, "but it is very quiet. Do you live here all by yourself?" Helena felt the question like a small knife, precise and sharp. "Yes," she said. "I live here alone." Marie frowned, as if this were a puzzle she could not quite solve. "That must be lonely," she said. "My mama says everyone needs someone to talk to." "Do you have anyone to talk to?" The simple directness of it took Helena's breath away. No one had asked her such a thing in years, maybe ever. Adults knew better than to probe into her personal life, knew to respect the boundaries she had drawn around herself. But Marie did not know about boundaries. She only knew what she saw, a woman living in a big house with no one to keep her company. Helena did not know how to answer. She felt exposed, vulnerable, all the careful armor she wore stripped away by a child's innocent question. "I have friends," she said finally, but it sounded hollow even to her own ears. Marie nodded, thoughtful. "That is good," she said. "Friends are important, but family is more important. My mama says family is the people who love you no matter what." Before Helena could respond, Anna appeared in the doorway, looking worried. "Marie," she said gently, "you should not bother Miss Helena." But Helena surprised herself by saying it was no bother. Marie smiled at her again, then skipped back to her mother's side, taking her hand. They went back into the music room together, and Helena stood alone in the hallway, feeling the weight of the child's words settling over her like snow. That night, Helena could not sleep. She lay in her enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about family and loneliness and all the choices she had made that had led her to this empty house. She had told herself for years that she was content, that she had everything she needed, that solitude was preferable to the mess and complication of human connection. But Marie's simple observation had shattered that comfortable lie. She was lonely, terribly, achingly lonely. And she had been lonely for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be anything else. She got up, pulled on her robe, and walked through the dark house. Room after room of beautiful things, all silent and still. No voices, no laughter, no life. Just objects collecting dust, no matter how often Anna polished them. She found herself in the music room, where a grand piano sat in the corner, untouched for years. Her mother had played, she remembered suddenly. Not expertly, but with enthusiasm, picking out simple melodies that made her father wince, but made Helena smile. After her mother died, no one played any more. The piano became just another piece of expensive furniture, beautiful, but useless. Helena sat down on the bench, lifted the cover from the keys. They were yellowed with age. some of them sticking slightly when she pressed them. She had not played since she was a child, since her father had decided piano lessons were a waste of time that could be better spent on subjects that would prepare her for managing the family business. But her fingers remembered the basics, the simple scales she had practiced over and over. She played a few notes, tentative and uncertain, the sound echoing in the empty room. It was not beautiful, not by any measure. But it was something. It was her making sound in a house that had been silent too long. She played for a few minutes, fumbling through half-remembered songs, and then she stopped. Her hands were shaking, and she realized with shock that she was crying, not the delicate tears of someone who cries prettily, but real sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She cried for her mother, for the little girl she had been, who had lost so much so young. She cried for her father, who had never learned how to love her the way she needed. And she cried for herself, for all the years she had wasted being perfect instead of being happy. The next morning, she woke with swollen eyes and a headache, but also with a strange sense of clarity. Something had shifted in her during the night, some long frozen part of her beginning to thaw. When Anna arrived with Marie, Helena found herself going to greet them instead of hiding in her office. She asked Anna how she was, really asked, and waited for the answer. Anna looked surprised but pleased, and they talked for a few minutes about ordinary things, the weather, the traffic, how Marie was doing in school. It was simple conversation, the kind Helena usually found tedious, but today it felt like something more. It felt like connection, tentative and fragile, but real. Marie showed Helena the picture she had drawn that morning before leaving for the house. It was a flower, a big, cheerful sunflower with a smiling face. "I made it for you," Marie said, holding it out. "Because you look sad sometimes, and flowers make people happy." Helena took the drawing with trembling hands, looking down at the bright yellow petals, the green stem, the happy face in the center. It was just a child's drawing, clumsy and simple, colored outside the lines. But it was given with such genuine kindness, such uncomplicated desire to bring joy, that Helena felt her eyes fill with tears again. She knelt down so she was eye level with Marie, something she had never done before. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "This is the most beautiful gift anyone has given me in a very long time." Marie beamed, clearly delighted. "You can put it on your refrigerator," she said. "That is what my mama does with my pictures. It makes the kitchen happy." Helena promised she would, and she meant it. After Anna and Marie went to start their work, Helena stood in the hallway holding the drawing, staring at it as if it held the secrets of the universe. In a way, perhaps it did. It held the secret of generosity without expectation, of giving for the simple joy of giving, of seeing someone's pain and wanting to ease it. These were things Helena had forgotten, if she had ever known them at all. She walked to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and carefully attached Marie's sunflower with a magnet. It looked absurd there, this bright, childish drawing on the front of her expensive stainless steel refrigerator. But it also looked right. It looked like life. Over the next 2 weeks, Marie drew more pictures. She never asked if Helena wanted them, simply handed them over with her shy smile, gifts given freely. A rainbow, a family of stick figures holding hands, a cat with whiskers as long as its body, a house with smoke curling from the chimney. Each one was carefully added to the refrigerator until the door was covered in color and joy. The cook commented on it, surprised to see such chaos in Helena's normally pristine kitchen. But Helena did not take them down. She liked walking into the kitchen and seeing them there, liked being reminded that there was beauty in imperfection, that not everything had to be controlled and curated. The pictures became a kind of timeline, marking the days, showing Marie's small improvements in skill, her growing confidence with the crayons, and each one was a reminder that she had been seen by this child, that Marie had noticed her sadness and wanted to help in the only way a 6-year-old knew how. But it was the last picture, the one Marie drew on a grey November afternoon, that changed everything. Helena was in her office when Marie knocked softly on the door, something she had never done before. Helena called for her to come in, surprised. Marie entered, holding a piece of paper against her chest, her expression unusually serious. "I drew something special for you," she said. "Can I show you?" Helena nodded, curious, and Marie approached the desk. She laid the paper down carefully, smoothing out the corners with her small hands. Helena looked down at it, and her breath caught in her throat. It was a picture of 3 people. A woman with dark hair in a grey dress, standing alone on one side of the paper. In the middle, a little girl with curly hair holding her hand out. And on the other side, another woman, smaller, with a kind smile. They were not connected yet in the drawing, but the little girl's hand reached toward both of them, a bridge waiting to be built. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, Marie had written 3 words. "We need you." Helena stared at the drawing, unable to speak. She understood what Marie was trying to say, what she saw with the clarity of a child who had not yet learned to complicate simple truths. The woman in grey was Helena, alone on her side of the page. The woman with the kind smile was Anna, and Marie herself was in the middle, reaching out to both of them, trying to bring them together, trying to build something that looked like family from 3 people who barely knew each other. It should have seemed ridiculous, presumptuous even. But instead, it felt like someone had reached into Helena's chest and touched the deepest longing she had carried for 40 years. The longing to belong to someone, to matter to someone, to be part of something bigger than herself. She looked up at Marie, tears streaming down her face now, unable to hide them, or control them, or pretend they were not there. Marie's eyes went wide with concern. "Did I make you sad?" she asked, her voice small. "I did not want to make you sad." Helena shook her head, reaching out to take the child's hand. "No," she said. "You did not make me sad. You made me see something I have been too afraid to see. You made me remember what it feels like to hope." That evening, after Anna and Marie had gone home, Helena sat alone in her office holding the drawing. The house felt different now, heavier somehow, weighted with possibility and fear in equal measure. For years she had built her life around certainty, around control, around knowing exactly what each day would bring. But this picture in her hands represented chaos, the unknown, the terrifying prospect of opening her heart to people who might leave, who might hurt her, who might remind her too much of everything she had lost. She placed the drawing carefully in the top drawer of her desk, unable to throw it away, but not yet ready to display it like the others. It felt too raw, too honest, too much like a mirror showing her things she had spent decades trying not to see. She walked through the mansion that night, seeing it with new eyes. Every room perfect, every surface gleaming, every object in its designated place. But nowhere in any of these 30 rooms was there evidence that anyone actually lived here. No photographs on the mantel. No books left open on the sofa. No coffee cup forgotten on a side table. It was a museum, just as she had thought before. But now that observation carried weight it had not held previously. Museums were places you visited, not places you lived. They preserved the past, but had no room for the messy, complicated present. She found herself thinking about Anna, really thinking about her for the first time. What did she know about this woman who came 3 times a week to clean her house? Almost nothing. She knew Anna was a hard worker, that she was Marie's mother, that she hummed old songs while she polished the silver. But she did not know where Anna lived, whether she had family nearby, what dreams she carried in her heart, what struggles she faced each day. Helena had kept that distance deliberately, maintaining the invisible wall between employer and employee. But now that wall felt less like protection and more like prison. She remembered Marie's words from weeks ago about how everyone needs someone to talk to. She had friends, or people she called friends. But could she talk to any of them about this confusion she felt, this sudden longing for something she could not quite name? No. Those friendships were built on superficiality, on maintaining appearances, on never showing weakness or need. They lunched together and attended galas together, but they did not share their hearts. They did not reach across the space between them to truly see and be seen. Sleep came slowly that night, and when it finally arrived, it brought dreams that left her unsettled. She dreamed of her mother, young and vibrant, hanging paintings on a refrigerator. She dreamed of Marie, older now, walking away down a long hallway that stretched into darkness. She dreamed of her father, sitting at his desk, looking up at her with eyes that held no recognition, as if she were a stranger who had wandered into his office by mistake. She woke before dawn, her heart racing, and lay in the darkness, trying to understand what her subconscious was trying to tell her. Perhaps it was simply this, that time moved forward, whether you were ready or not. That little girls grew up and walked away if you did not hold on to them. That fathers died without ever really knowing their daughters. That opportunities for whole connection were finite, precious, and easily missed if you spent too much time being afraid. The sky outside her window began to lighten, pale grey giving way to pink and gold. She rose, dressed in clothes more casual than her usual attire, jeans and a soft sweater instead of a suit. She did not know why, only that something was shifting, and she needed to acknowledge it, even in small ways. When Anna arrived that morning with Marie, Helena was waiting in the foyer. Anna looked surprised to see her there, and perhaps a bit worried, as if she feared something had gone wrong. But Helena smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and asked if they might talk for a few minutes before Anna started her work. They went into the kitchen. Helena poured coffee for both of them, and they sat at the small breakfast table where Helena never usually sat. Marie settled herself on the floor nearby with her crayons and paper, content as always. For a moment, Helena did not know how to begin. She had spent so many years guarding her words, measuring each sentence, never revealing more than was absolutely necessary. But she thought of Marie's drawing, of that little figure in the middle reaching out her hands, and she decided to try something she had not done in a very long time. She decided to be honest. "I want to apologize," she said slowly. "I have not been very welcoming to you or to Marie. I have kept my distance, and that was wrong. You come here 3 times a week, and I have never even asked you about your life, about what matters to you. I would like to change that, if you are willing." Anna looked at her with careful eyes, the kind of look that comes from years of learning to read the moods of employers, to gauge whether words matched intentions. But she must have seen something genuine in Helena's expression, because her face softened. "That is kind of you to say," Anna replied. "I know I am just here to clean, and I do not expect anything more than that." But Helena shook her head. "No," she said. "You are not just here to clean. You are a person who comes into my home, who brings your daughter, who works hard to make a life for her. That deserves respect and recognition. I have been so focused on maintaining boundaries that I forgot basic human decency." Anna's eyes grew bright, and Helena realized she had touched something tender. "It is difficult sometimes," Anna admitted quietly. "Being a single mother, working multiple jobs, trying to give Marie everything she needs, while feeling like I am always falling short. Most people do not see that. They see the woman who cleans their toilets, not the woman who stays up late helping her daughter with homework, who worries about paying the electric bill, who dreams of a better life. I appreciate you seeing me as more than just your employee." They talked for nearly an hour, the longest conversation Helena had ever had with anyone in this house that did not involve business or obligation. Anna told her about growing up, poor in a small town, about getting pregnant at 23 with a man who left before Marie was born, about working her way through the years with determination and hope. She spoke of Marie's gentle spirit, how she worried sometimes that her daughter was too sensitive for a world that could be harsh and unkind. She shared her dreams of saving enough money to go back to school, to get a degree that would let her provide better for Marie. And Helena listened, really listened, not planning her response or checking the time, just taking in this woman's story with the attention it deserved. In turn, she found herself sharing things she had not spoken of in years, about losing her mother young, about her father's coldness, about inheriting wealth that had never made her happy, about the loneliness that echoed through every room of this beautiful house. Anna reached across the table and squeezed her hand, a simple gesture of comfort that meant more to Helena than any words could have. "You do not have to be lonely," Anna said gently. "Loneliness is a choice we make, sometimes without realizing it. But it can be unmade, too." After that morning, things began to shift in small but significant ways. Helena started joining Anna for coffee each time she came to work, sitting in the kitchen while Marie drew pictures on the floor. They talked about ordinary things and extraordinary things, building the kind of friendship that comes from genuine interest and mutual respect. Helena learned that Anna loved old movies, that she collected vintage teacups from thrift stores, that she had a sister in another state she had not seen in 5 years because she could not afford the trip. She learned that Marie was struggling in math but excelling in reading, that she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up, that her favorite color was purple, even though she rarely got purple things because they cost the same as other colors, but seemed more special. These details filled in the picture of who these people were, transforming them from servants who floated through her house to real individuals with hopes and fears and complicated inner lives. Helena began to notice other things, too. The way Anna's shoes were worn through at the heels, the way Marie's clothes were always clean, but clearly second-hand, a bit too big or a bit too small. The way they shared one small sandwich for lunch, dividing it carefully so each had enough. These observations stirred something in Helena, a desire to help that went beyond writing checks to distant charities. One afternoon, she invited Marie to have lunch with her in the dining room, that vast, formal space that had always felt like a mausoleum. The cook prepared sandwiches and soup, and they sat at one end of the long table, Marie's feet swinging above the floor as she ate carefully, trying not to spill. Helena asked her about school, about her friends, about what she liked to do for fun. Marie answered in her soft voice, explaining that she did not have many friends because the other children thought she was too quiet. But she did not mind, because she liked reading and drawing better than playing anyway. She told Helena about her teacher, Miss Roberts, who let her stay inside during recess sometimes to help organize the classroom library. She described her favorite book, a story about a little girl who found a magic garden. When she talked, her whole face lit up, animated in a way Helena rarely saw. It struck her that this child, despite having so little in material terms, had something Helena had never possessed. She had joy. Simple, uncomplicated joy in small pleasures. A good book, a kind teacher, time spent with her mother. She did not need expensive things or impressive experiences to feel content. She just needed love and attention, and the freedom to be herself. After lunch, Marie asked if she could see the rest of the house. Helena hesitated only a moment before agreeing. They walked through room after room, Marie's eyes growing wider with each new space. She marveled at the library with its walls of books, asked to touch the soft fabric of the curtains in the drawing room, stood before the paintings in the gallery, asking what each one was meant to show. In the music room, she spotted the piano and asked if Helena could play. "I used to," Helena admitted, "when I was about your age. But I have not played in many years." Marie looked disappointed. "That is sad," she said. "My teacher says music is like magic. It can make you feel things that words cannot say." "Will you play something for me? Please?" And so Helena sat down at the piano, her fingers finding the keys again as they had that night weeks ago. She played a simple melody, one her mother had taught her long ago, stumbling over some notes but finishing it. When she looked up, Marie was smiling, her hands clasped together. "That was beautiful," Marie said. "You should play more often. This house needs more music." Helena felt tears prick her eyes again, this child's simple wisdom cutting through decades of numbness. "You are right," she said. "It does need more music. Maybe you could help me remember how." The weeks that followed brought a warmth to the riverside estate that it had not known in generations. Helena found herself planning her days around Anna's visits, looking forward to their morning conversations, to the sound of Marie's laughter echoing through the halls. She started leaving her office door open instead of closed, started wandering through the house to see what they were doing instead of hiding away with her paperwork. She learned that Anna sang while she worked, not just out of habit, but because it made the hours pass more quickly, because music kept loneliness at bay. She discovered that Marie had memorized dozens of poems and would recite them softly to herself while she drew, the rhythm of the words matching the movement of her crayons across paper. These small discoveries felt like treasures, pieces of understanding that built connection brick by brick. But change, even good change, never comes without complication. Helena's carefully constructed life began to show cracks in other places, revealing how fragile her old routines had been. Her so-called friends noticed the shift in her first. At a charity luncheon in early December, Margaret Thornton, a woman Helena had known for 20 years, commented on her appearance. "You look different," Margaret said, her eyes sharp and assessing. softer somehow. Have you changed your hair? Helena touched her hair self-consciously, though it was styled the same as always. No, she said. Perhaps I am just feeling better lately. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Better? You were unwell? Not unwell exactly, Helena tried to explain. Just, I have been making some changes in my life. Letting people in more. Margaret's expression suggested she found this concept suspicious. Letting people in? What people? Helena hesitated, unsure how to explain without sounding foolish. My cleaning woman and her daughter, she finally said. We have become friends. The silence that followed was pointed. Margaret exchanged glances with the other women at the table, and Helena could read their thoughts as clearly as if they had spoken them aloud. Friends with the help? How inappropriate. How strange. How unlike Helena to blur such important boundaries. The rest of the lunch was uncomfortable, filled with thinly veiled concerns about whether Helena was having some sort of crisis. They suggested she needed rest. Perhaps a vacation somewhere warm and relaxing. They reminded her that one must maintain proper distance with employees, that familiarity bred contempt and complicated working relationships. Their words were kind on the surface, but cutting underneath, making Helena feel foolish for caring about Anna and Marie, for letting them matter to her. She left the luncheon early, claiming a headache, and drove home in silence. The mansion greeted her with its usual cold perfection. But now, instead of finding comfort in that order, she felt suffocated by it. She thought about what Margaret and the others would say if they knew the whole truth, if they knew that she had started looking forward to Anna's arrival more than any social engagement on her calendar, that she had begun keeping Marie's drawings in a special folder, that she lay awake at night, thinking about how to help this family that had stumbled into her life. They would think she had lost her mind, that grief or loneliness had made her irrational. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps this connection she felt was just desperate need masquerading as friendship. But when Anna arrived 2 days later with Marie, and Marie ran to hug her legs in greeting, Helena knew her old friends were wrong. This was not desperation. This was the first real thing she had felt in decades. She made a decision that afternoon, one that would prove complicated in ways she could not foresee. She called Anna into her office after the cleaning was done, asked her to sit down for a serious conversation. Anna looked worried, probably thinking she was about to be let go, her face going pale. But Helena smiled to reassure her. I have been thinking, Helena began carefully. You work very hard, multiple jobs, and you are barely making enough to cover your expenses. I would like to help, if you will let me. I want to increase your pay significantly, and I would like to cover Marie's school expenses, supplies, whatever she needs. Anna stared at her, speechless for a long moment. Finally, she found her voice. That is too much, she said. I cannot accept charity. This is not charity, Helena insisted. It is friendship. It is me recognizing that I have more than I need, and you have less than you deserve. Please, let me do this. Anna's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head slowly. You are very kind, but I cannot take your money. I have my pride. I work for what I earn. I do not want handouts, not even from someone as generous as you. Helena felt frustration rise in her chest. Why must pride stand in the way of practical help? But she could see the set of Anna's jaw, the determination in her eyes. This was a woman who had fought for everything she had, who had learned that accepting help often came with strings attached, with expectations and obligations that could trap you. They reached a compromise after much discussion. Helena would increase Anna's pay, but frame it as payment for additional responsibilities. She would hire Anna not just to clean, but to help manage the household more broadly. Anna could hire other people to handle some of the heavier work, while she focused on tasks that required more judgment and care. It was a promotion of sorts, one that came with enough additional salary to make a real difference. As for Marie's expenses, Helena suggested they call it a scholarship, something she was funding through her charitable foundation. Anna was hesitant, but eventually agreed, seeing that Helena was determined to help and that refusing would hurt their growing friendship. After Anna left that evening, Helena felt satisfied that she had done something good, something that mattered. But she did not anticipate how complicated even good intentions could become. The increased salary meant Anna needed to report it for taxes, which meant forms and paperwork and questions about why this employee was suddenly making so much more. Helena's accountant called, confused about the changes, suggesting that it looked improper, that people might get the wrong idea about their relationship. Helena felt her face flush with anger. What wrong idea could anyone possibly get? That she cared about someone who worked for her? That she wanted to help a struggling single mother? But she knew what the accountant meant, what people would think if they knew. They would assume something inappropriate, something sordid, because they could not imagine genuine kindness without hidden motives. Scholarship for Marie proved even more complicated. The school required documentation, proof that Marie qualified for financial aid, forms filled out explaining why this child in particular deserved help. Helena tried to keep it simple, to process it through her foundation's regular channels, but the administrator kept asking questions. Did Marie have special needs that warranted support? Was there a family connection? Why this child specifically when there were so many others who could benefit? Helena found herself frustrated by the bureaucracy of kindness, by the way that trying to do good required justification and explanation. She wanted to shout that it should be enough that she wanted to help, that she had the means and someone else had the need. But she bit her tongue, filled out the forms, provided the documentation, and waited for approval. In the meantime, she simply bought what Marie needed herself: school supplies and new shoes and a warm winter coat, giving them to Anna wrapped as early Christmas presents. Anna protested each time, but Helena could see the relief in her eyes, the weight lifting as she no longer had to choose between groceries and school supplies, between keeping the heat on and buying her daughter new clothes that fit. December brought snow and holiday preparations, and a kind of nervous anticipation Helena had not felt since childhood. She found herself wanting to make Christmas special, not just for herself, but for Anna and Marie. She had the cook prepare extra food, baked goods, and holiday treats, and sent them home with Anna each visit. She bought gifts, carefully chosen things she thought Marie would love. Books, because the child loved reading. Art supplies, because she loved to create. A warm blanket, because Anna had mentioned their apartment was drafty. She wrapped each gift herself, sitting at her dining room table with paper and ribbon, taking pleasure in the simple task. It felt good to give without expectation, to think about what would bring joy to someone else, rather than what would impress or obligate. She invited them to spend Christmas Eve with her, a quiet dinner in the kitchen, rather than the formal dining room, just the three of them. Anna was hesitant, saying they should not intrude on her holiday, but Helena insisted. "I have spent too many holidays alone," she said. "Please let me spend this one with friends." Anna finally agreed, and Helena spent days planning the menu, choosing music, decorating the kitchen with garlands and candles to make it feel festive and warm. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow covering the grounds, transforming the estate into something magical. Anna and Marie came in the afternoon, both dressed in their best clothes, Marie carrying a small package wrapped in newspaper comics. They sat in the kitchen while Helena and the cook prepared dinner, Marie helping to stir gravy and set the table, her face glowing with excitement. When they finally sat down to eat, the table, laden with turkey and vegetables and fresh bread, Helena felt something unfamiliar swell in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Contentment. Simple, pure contentment at being with people she cared about, sharing a meal, creating memories. They ate slowly, talking and laughing, Marie telling jokes she had learned at school, Anna sharing stories from her own childhood. Christmases. After dinner, they moved to the living room where Helena had set up a small tree, nothing like the enormous decorated monstrosity her father had always insisted upon, just a simple pine with lights and a few ornaments. They sat by the fire, drinking hot chocolate, and Helena handed out the gifts she had prepared. Marie opened hers with careful excitement, gasping at each item, hugging the books to her chest, immediately wanting to try the new crayons. Anna's eyes filled with tears when she opened the blanket, running her hands over the soft fabric. "You did not have to do this," she whispered. "I know," Helena said. "I wanted to." Marie held out the package wrapped in comics, shy now. "This is for you," she said. "I made it myself." Helena opened it carefully, and inside found a drawing unlike any Marie had given her before. This one showed the three of them, standing together in front of a Christmas tree, holding hands and smiling. At the top, in Marie's careful letters, were the words, "Our family." Helena stared at it, unable to speak, feeling something break and rebuild inside her all at once. Family. Not her family. Not their family. Our family. As if they belonged to each other, all three of them, bound by choice rather than blood. She looked up at Marie, then at Anna, and saw in their faces the same hope, the same tentative belief that maybe, just maybe, loneliness could be defeated by love freely given. The new year arrived cold and bright, bringing with it both promise and complication. Helena woke on the first day of January, feeling lighter than she had in years, as if the weight she had been carrying had finally begun to lift. She had spent New Year's Eve with Anna and Marie, watching old movies and eating popcorn, counting down to midnight with sparkling cider instead of champagne. When the clock struck 12, Marie had hugged her tight, whispering Happy New Year with such genuine affection that Helena had felt her eyes sting with tears. For the first time in her adult life, she had welcomed a new year surrounded by love, and it changed something fundamental in how she saw the months ahead. But the world outside her small bubble of happiness was less accepting of the changes she had made. January brought with it a reckoning she had not anticipated, challenges that tested the fragile foundations of the family she was trying to build. The trouble started with Helena's lawyer, a stern man named Richard, who had handled her father's affairs and now managed her estate. He called requesting an urgent meeting, his voice tight with concern. When Helena arrived at his downtown office, she found him sitting behind his massive desk, with folders spread before him, his expression grave. "We need to discuss your recent financial decisions," he began without preamble. "The increased payments to your domestic employee, The gifts, the scholarship. Helena, this looks improper. I am concerned people will misinterpret your generosity. Helena felt her spine stiffen. Misinterpret how, exactly? Richard shifted uncomfortably. You must understand, there are optics to consider. A wealthy woman suddenly lavishing money on her cleaning woman and her child. People talk. They wonder about motivations. Some might even suggest you are being taken advantage of, that this woman has manipulated you somehow. The words hit Helena like a slap. How dare he suggest that Anna, who had done nothing but work hard and care for her daughter, was somehow using her? How dare he reduce their friendship to a transaction, something mercenary and cold? She stood up, anger making her voice shake. Anna has not manipulated me. She has done nothing but be kind, be honest, be herself. If I choose to help her, that is my decision to make with my own money. Richard held up his hands in a placating gesture. I am not saying she has done anything wrong. I am simply advising you to be cautious. Your father built this estate carefully, and it is my job to protect it. Large, unexplained gifts can raise questions with the tax authorities. Spending that appears personal rather than charitable needs proper documentation. And frankly, given your isolation over the years, people might worry that you are not thinking clearly, that you are vulnerable to influence. Helena wanted to scream. Her whole life she had been told what to do, how to behave, what was proper and appropriate. Her father had controlled every aspect of her existence, and even now, 10 years after his death, his lawyer was still trying to manage her life. But she was not that obedient daughter anymore. Anna and Marie had shown her something different, something better. She leaned forward, her voice cold. Richard, I appreciate your concern, but I am 47 years old, perfectly capable of making my own decisions. If you cannot support those decisions, then perhaps I need to find new legal representation. The threat landed. Richard paled slightly, realizing he had overstepped. Of course, he backpedaled quickly. I only want to protect your interests. I will draw up the proper documentation to ensure everything is above board. That evening, Helena returned home exhausted, the joy of the new year already tarnished by the ugliness of suspicion and judgment. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat in the library, staring at the portrait of her father that hung above the fireplace. He looked stern, even in paint, his eyes cold and assessing. She had spent her whole life trying to please him, to earn his approval, and had never succeeded. Even now, his legacy constrained her, his lawyer and accountant and business associates all determined to make sure she continued living by his rules, but she was tired of rules, tired of appearances, tired of sacrificing happiness for the sake of what others thought proper. She took the portrait down from the wall, struggling with its weight, and carried it to the storage room in the basement. She would not live under his judgmental gaze any longer. When Anna arrived the next morning, Helena told her about the meeting with Richard, needing to share the burden of it. Anna listened quietly, her face troubled. Maybe he is right, she said softly. Maybe people will talk, will think badly of you because of me. Maybe I should find work elsewhere, so you do not have to deal with this. Helena reached across the table and gripped Anna's hand. No, she said firmly. You are not going anywhere. Let them talk. Let them think what they want. I am done living my life based on what other people might say. But the complications continued to mount. Margaret called, ostensibly to invite Helena to a spring fundraiser, but really to probe about her new friendship. I heard from Richard that you have been quite generous with your staff, Margaret said, her tone falsely sweet. That is admirable, of course, but do be careful, dear. These people, well, they come from a different world. They might not understand the boundaries that we maintain. Helena felt her jaw clench. These people have names, Margaret, Anna and Marie, and they understand boundaries perfectly well. In fact, they have been better friends to me than most people I have known for decades. There was a pause, then Margaret's voice turned sharp. Helena, we have been friends for a very long time, so I am going to speak plainly. You are making a fool of yourself, treating your cleaning woman like family, buying gifts for her child. People are starting to wonder if you are quite well. Perhaps you should see someone, talk to a therapist about why you are seeking companionship in such inappropriate places. Helena hung up without responding, her hands shaking with rage. Inappropriate places, as if friendship could only exist within narrow social strata, as if caring about people who had less money somehow made her foolish or unwell. She realized in that moment that she had never really had friends at all, not true friends. She had had social connections, people who valued her for her wealth and status, but had never cared about who she actually was. Anna, who cleaned her house, knew her better and loved her more genuinely than any of these society women ever had. Marie's school brought its own set of challenges. The scholarship had been approved, and with it came scrutiny. The principal called Anna in for a meeting, questioning whether the arrangement was appropriate, whether there might be strings attached that could affect Marie. Anna came back from that meeting, pale and shaken, repeating the questions they had asked. Was she sure this was just generosity? Had Helena asked for anything in return? Did Anna feel pressured to maintain the employment relationship because of the financial support? The implication was clear. They suspected something unsavory, something wrong, in an act of simple kindness. Helena wanted to march down to that school and demand they explain what they found so suspicious about a woman helping a child get an education. But Anna begged her not to make waves, worried that pushing back would only make things worse for Marie. So Helena swallowed her anger and wrote a careful letter to the school board, explaining that her foundation regularly provided scholarships to deserving children, that Marie was one of many recipients, that there was nothing unusual about the arrangement. It was a lie, of course. Marie was not one of many. She was special, chosen not by merit scores or financial need calculations, but by the simple fact that she had reached out to a lonely woman and offered friendship. But Helena could not say that. She had to package her love in acceptable terms, make it sound institutional and impersonal, strip away the very thing that made it meaningful. Through all of this, Marie remained blissfully unaware of the complications her presence had caused. She still came with her mother 3 times a week, still drew pictures and recited poems and filled the house with light. Helena tried to shield her from the adult complications, the judgments and suspicions and bureaucratic obstacles. But children sense things, even when adults try to hide them. One afternoon in late January, Marie climbed into Helena's lap while they sat in the music room, something she had never done before. "Are people being mean to you because of us?" she asked quietly. Helena's heart clenched. "What makes you ask that?" Marie traced patterns on Helena's sleeve. "Mama seems sad sometimes. She told me some people do not understand why you are nice to us. She said some people think we do not deserve nice things because we are poor. I told her that is silly. Nice things should not be just for rich people. They should be for everyone. Helena hugged her close, breathing in the scent of crayons and children's shampoo. "You are absolutely right," she said. "And anyone who thinks differently is wrong. Do not let anyone make you feel like you deserve less than kindness and love. You deserve everything good in this world." Marie nodded against her shoulder. "I drew you another picture," she said. "Do you want to see it?" "Of course," Helena replied, and Marie scrambled down to retrieve her notebook. The picture showed a castle surrounded by a tall wall. Inside the wall were 3 small figures holding hands. Outside the wall were many other figures, their faces drawn as frowns. At the bottom, Marie had written, "Sometimes you have to build walls to keep safe the people you love." Helena stared at it, tears streaming down her face for what felt like the 100th time since this child had entered her life. Marie had understood more than Helena had given her credit for. She had seen the threats and judgments and had created, in her childish way, a metaphor for protection. The castle was their bond, their small family. The wall was the boundary they needed to maintain against those who would tear them apart. And the people outside, the frowning faces, were all those who could not understand that love transcended class and status and social expectations. How does a 6-year-old understand these things? Helena wondered. How does a child see so clearly what adults make complicated? She hung the picture in her bedroom, where she could see it first thing every morning and last thing every night. A reminder that some things were worth fighting for, worth building walls around, worth defending against a world that preferred everyone stay in their assigned places. February brought a cold snap that froze the fountain in the garden and made the old house creak and groan. Helena found herself thinking more and more about the future, about what she wanted her life to look like, not just tomorrow or next week, but years from now. Where did Anna and Marie fit in that future? What would happen as Marie grew older, became a teenager, eventually an adult? Would they drift apart as lives naturally diverged, or was there a way to bind them together more permanently, more securely? She began to research quietly, using her computer late at night when the house was dark and still. She looked into guardianship laws, foster care systems, adoption procedures. She was not sure yet what she wanted, only that the thought of losing Anna and Marie felt unbearable, like contemplating the loss of a limb. They had become essential to her in ways she was still learning to understand. But every article she read, every legal document she scanned, presented obstacles. Single women her age could adopt, but it was difficult, required home studies and interviews, and proof that she could provide a stable environment. And Marie was not available for adoption anyway. She had a mother who loved her, who was doing her best. Helena was not trying to replace Anna. She was trying to figure out how to bind all 3 of them together into something that could not be easily torn apart. She found examples of extended families, of communal living arrangements, of people who chose to build lives together outside the traditional definitions. But even these carried their own complications, questions about legal rights and financial obligations, and what happened when disagreements arose. Helena realized that what she wanted was simple in concept, but nearly impossible in practice. She wanted to look at Anna and Marie and say, "You are mine and I am yours," and have that carry the same weight and recognition as blood relation. But society did not have a category for that. There was family and there was not family, and the line between them was drawn in ways that excluded the very relationships that mattered most. One evening in mid-February, Helena worked up the courage to broach the subject with Anna. They were sitting in the kitchen after Marie had fallen asleep on the sofa in the living room, exhausted from a day spent playing in the snow that had fallen overnight. Helena had made tea, and they sat across from each other in the comfortable silence that had become natural between them. "I have been thinking about something," Helena began carefully. "About the future, about what I want my life to look like. And I realize that I cannot imagine it without you and Marie in it." Anna looked up, her expression cautious. "We are not going anywhere," she said. "I am grateful for this job, for your friendship. You do not need to worry about that." Helena shook her head. "That is not what I mean. I know you are not going anywhere by choice. But life happens. Things change. Marie will grow up, will need less supervision. You might find a better job, might want to move. And I would have no say in any of it, no claim on either of you. The thought of that terrifies me." Anna set down her teacup, her eyes searching Helena's face. "What are you saying exactly?" Helena took a deep breath. "I want us to be a family. Not just friends, not just employer and employee, but something more permanent. I do not know exactly what that looks like legally, but I want to find a way. Maybe I could be Marie's godmother officially, or we could find some legal arrangement that gives me a role in her life that cannot be easily dismissed. Maybe you and Marie could live here, not in that drafty apartment, but here where there is space and warmth and security." The words tumbled out faster now, revealing the depth of thought she had put into this. "I know it sounds strange. I know people would talk even more than they already do. But I do not care about that anymore. I care about you two. You have given me something I did not even know I needed, and I want to give you something back. Not just money or gifts, but commitment. A promise that I will be here, that you can count on me, that we are bound together in a way that matters." Anna's eyes filled with tears. She reached across the table and took Helena's hands in hers. "You do not know how much that means to me," she said, her voice breaking. "But I need to be honest with you about something. Something I have been afraid to tell you because I did not want you to think differently of me." Helena felt a flutter of fear in her chest, but she squeezed Anna's hands. "You can tell me anything." Anna took a shaky breath. "Marie's father, the man who left when I was pregnant. His name was David, and he was not just someone who did not want to be a father. He was dangerous. He had a temper, he drank, and near the end he started getting physical. I left before it could get worse, but he has never fully let go. He appears sometimes, every year or two, demanding to see Marie or asking for money. The last time was almost a year ago, just before I started working here. I told him to leave us alone, threatened to get a restraining order, and he vanished again. But I always know he might come back. And if he does, if he decides he wants to be involved in Marie's life or wants to cause trouble, everything becomes complicated. My greatest fear is that he will show up and ruin the stability I have tried so hard to build for her." Helena felt cold spread through her veins. "Does he know where you live?" Anna nodded. "I have moved twice to get away from him, but he always finds us eventually. I have not told Marie much about him. She knows her father is not around, but she does not know why, does not know how bad it was. I want to protect her from that knowledge as long as I can." Helena's mind raced, thinking through implications and possibilities. This changed things, made the situation more precarious, but also more urgent. If this man was a threat, then Anna and Marie needed protection, needed resources, needed someone standing with them who had the power to push back. "If you lived here," Helena said slowly, "he could not just show up. The gates are locked, there is security. You would be safer. And if he tried to cause legal trouble, tried to claim parental rights, I have lawyers who could fight that. You would not be alone in dealing with him." Anna shook her head. "I cannot drag you into my mess. This is not your problem to solve." "It is not a mess," Helena insisted. "It is life, complicated and difficult, but not something you should have to face alone. Let me help. Please. You have given me so much. Let me give you this. Safety. Security. Someone who will stand beside you when things get hard." Anna cried then. Really cried. The kind of tears that come from carrying too much weight for too long and finally having someone offer to share the load. They sat there in the kitchen until late in the night, talking through possibilities and fears, making tentative plans for a future that included both promise and danger. The next few weeks were spent in preparation, though for what exactly Helena could not say. She met with her lawyers to discuss options for protecting Anna and Marie legally. She had the security system at the estate upgraded, cameras installed at all the entrances, the gates reinforced. She cleared out the entire west wing of the house, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom, and had them redecorated to be warm and welcoming. 1 room for Anna, 1 for Marie, and 1 left as a playroom filled with books and art supplies and toys. She told Anna it was ready whenever they wanted to move in, no pressure, but the option was there. Anna walked through the rooms with tears in her eyes, touching the soft bedding, the thick curtains, the desk where Marie could do homework. She had never had space like this, had never imagined her daughter growing up somewhere so beautiful, but she hesitated still, worried about accepting too much, worried about what it would mean. Helena understood. It was a big step, one that would change everything. So they agreed to start slowly. Anna and Marie would stay over 1 night a week, then 2, gradually transitioning until it felt natural for them to be there all the time. Marie loved the playroom immediately, spending hours arranging the books and setting up her art supplies. She claimed the window seat as her special spot, where she could look out over the gardens and draw what she saw. The first night they stayed over, Helena tucked Marie into bed in her new room, something she had never done before. Marie looked so small in the big bed, surrounded by pillows and soft blankets. "Will you read me a story?" Marie asked. Helena chose a book from the shelf, one about a little girl who found a family in unexpected places, and read until Marie's eyes grew heavy. Before she fell asleep, Marie reached out and took Helena's hand. "I am glad we found you," she whispered. "I think maybe you are the family we were looking for all along." Helena kissed her forehead, her heart so full it hurt. "I think maybe you are right," she said. "I love you, Marie." The words came out easily, naturally, because they were true. Marie smiled, her eyes closing. "I love you too, Aunt Helena." The title, given without asking, without planning, settled over Helena like a blessing. Aunt Helena. Not Miss Helena, not just Helena, but Aunt. A word that meant belonging, that meant family. But the peace they were building was fragile, and the threat that Anna had warned about materialized sooner than any of them expected. It was a Tuesday afternoon in early March when the doorbell rang, An unusual occurrence, since most visitors were expected and came through the main gate after calling ahead. Helena answered the door herself. Anna was upstairs making beds, and found a man standing on the porch. He was in his late 30s, with the kind of looks that might once have been handsome, but were now worn down by hard living. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled, and he smelled of cigarette smoke. He looked at Helena with barely concealed contempt. "I am looking for Anna," he said. "I know she works here. Tell her David wants to see her." Helena felt every muscle in her body tense. This was Marie's father, the man who had hurt Anna, who had abandoned his child, who represented everything threatening to the fragile family they were building. "I will not tell her anything," Helena said, her voice cold. "You need to leave, now." David's expression hardened. "You do not tell me what to do." "I have a right to see my daughter. Anna has been keeping her from me, poisoning her against me. I am her father, and I have rights." "Rights you gave up when you walked away," Helena shot back. "Rights you lost when you raised your hand to Anna. You need to leave this property immediately, or I will call the police." David laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Of course the rich lady protects her servant. What is she to you anyway? Are you paying her for more than cleaning?" The implication was vile, and Helena felt rage rise hot and sharp. She pulled out her phone. "I am calling the police right now. You are trespassing." But before she could dial, Anna appeared at the top of the stairs, having heard the voices. Her face went pale when she saw David. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaking. David pushed past Helena into the foyer. "I came to see my daughter. Where is she?" Anna came down the stairs quickly, putting herself between David and the rest of the house. "She is not here," Anna lied, "and you need to go. We have nothing to say to each other." David's face twisted. "You think you can keep her from me? You think living in this fancy house with your rich friend changes anything? She is my blood. You cannot erase me." Anna stood her ground, though Helena could see her trembling. "You erased yourself when you left. Marie does not know you, does not need you. We have built a good life without you." David stepped closer, menacing now. "You think you are better than me? You are nothing but a cleaning woman playing house with a lonely old spinster. This is not a real family. This is not real. And I can take it all away if I want to. I can petition for custody, drag you through court, make your life hell. How much is your friend willing to spend on lawyers? How long before she gets tired of your drama and throws you out?" Helena stepped forward, placing herself between Anna and David. "Get out of my house," she said, her voice like ice. "And if you ever come back here, if you ever threaten Anna or Marie again, I will use every resource I have to destroy you. I will bury you in legal fees. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. You will regret ever coming here." David looked at her with calculation in his eyes, weighing whether she was serious. He must have seen something in her expression that convinced him, because he stepped back. "This is not over," he said. "You cannot keep me from my kid. I will be back." And then he was gone, stalking down the driveway toward the gate that Helena immediately called security to lock behind him. Anna collapsed onto the stairs, her whole body shaking. Helena sat beside her, wrapping her arms around her. "It is going to be okay," she promised. "We will figure this out. We will keep you safe." But even as she said the words, she felt the cold grip of fear. David was not just a ghost from Anna's past. He was a real threat, one with legal standing and nothing to lose. And Helena realized that all her money and resources might not be enough to protect the people she loved. That night, after Marie had been put to bed with careful explanations that everything was fine, no need to worry, Helena sat with Anna in the library, and they talked honestly about what David's return meant. Anna was terrified, her hands shaking as she held her teacup. "He will not stop," she said quietly. "I know him. He is like a dog with a bone when he wants something. And right now he wants to hurt me, wants to prove he still has power over my life. Whether he actually cares about Marie does not matter. She is just leverage to him, a way to make me suffer." Helena asked the hard questions, the ones that needed asking. Has he ever been violent with Marie? Does he have any history of substance abuse that could be documented? Are there police reports from when he was abusive to you? Anna shook her head to most of it. He never hurt Marie because he left before she was born. He drank, yes, but I do not know if it would be considered abuse by legal standards. And I never called the police when he hit me because I was afraid, because I thought it would make things worse. So there is no paper trail, nothing to prove what he was like. It is just my word against his, and in court that might not be enough. Helena felt helpless in a way she had never experienced before. All her wealth, all her resources, and she could not simply wave them away and make this problem disappear. The law gave parents rights, even parents who had abandoned their children, even parents who had been cruel. David could petition for custody or visitation, and the court would have to take that seriously. They would investigate Anna's living situation, question her choices, scrutinize her relationship with Helena. And Helena knew how that would look to outsiders. A wealthy woman with no children taking in a single mother and her daughter, providing housing and money and claiming to be family. The cynical would see manipulation, would suspect ulterior motives, would question whether this environment was truly in Marie's best interest. They called Helena's lawyer first thing the next morning. Richard arrived at the house within hours, his expression grim as Anna recounted the history with David. He took notes, asked pointed questions, and finally sat back with a sigh. "This is complicated," he said. "David has parental rights unless those rights have been legally terminated, which they have not been. If he petitions for custody or visitation, the court will grant him at least supervised visits while they investigate. Anna could fight it, but these cases are expensive and emotionally draining, and there is no guarantee of the outcome." "What about his abandonment?" Helena demanded. "Does it not count that he has not seen his daughter in 7 years, that he has never paid child support, that he was abusive?" Richard nodded slowly. "Those factors will help, but they are not automatic disqualifiers. The court tends to favor reunification when possible, believing that children benefit from relationships with both parents, unless there is clear evidence of danger." Over the next week, Helena learned more about family law than she had ever wanted to know. She discovered that being rich was not enough to protect someone, that the system moved slowly and often failed the people it was meant to serve, that justice was not always just. Richard filed for an emergency restraining order, barring David from contacting Anna or coming near Marie. But restraining orders were just paper, he warned. They only worked if the person respected them, and men like David often did not. Helena hired a private investigator to look into David's background, hoping to find something that would help their case. The investigator returned with a file that painted a picture of a man who drifted from job to job, who had been arrested twice for drunk and disorderly conduct, who owed back taxes and had multiple evictions on his record. It was damning character evidence, but Richard warned it might not be enough. The court would focus on whether he posed a danger to Marie specifically, and his general failures as an adult did not necessarily translate to being an unfit parent. Meanwhile, Marie sensed the tension despite their best efforts to hide it. She grew quieter, more withdrawn, her drawings taking on darker tones. She drew pictures of walls and locked doors, of small figures hiding from larger, threatening shapes. One afternoon, she asked Anna directly, "Is my father coming back?" Anna, caught off guard, did not know how to answer. Helena watched them from the doorway, her heart breaking for this child who should never have to carry such fear. The twist came 3 weeks after David's initial visit, in a way none of them anticipated. Helena was in her office reviewing financial documents when Richard called, his voice urgent. "We need to meet immediately," he said. "Something has come up." Helena's stomach dropped, fearing the worst. David had filed for custody. David had violated the restraining order. David had done something that would tear their fragile family apart. But when Richard arrived an hour later, the news he brought was entirely different. "I had the investigator dig deeper," Richard said, spreading papers across Helena's desk. "And he found something interesting. David has been living under an assumed name for the past 2 years. He has warrants out in 2 states for fraud and identity theft. More importantly, he has another child, a son who is now 4 years old, living with his mother in Ohio. That woman has a restraining order against him for domestic violence, and there are documented police reports of him threatening both her and the child." "This changes everything," Richard continued, his expression intense. "We can use this to show a pattern of behavior. He is not just a man who made mistakes with Anna 7 years ago. He is someone who continues to be dangerous, who has recent documented violence. With this evidence, we can petition to have his parental rights terminated permanently. He will have no legal claim to Marie ever again." Helena felt hope surge through her for the first time in weeks, but she also felt something else, a deep sadness for the other woman in Ohio, for the child who had suffered, for the pattern of pain that David left in his wake. Anna, when she heard the news, wept with relief and grief mixed together. She was grateful for the protection it would offer Marie, but heartbroken that another woman had suffered what she had suffered, that another child had been hurt. They moved quickly, Richard filing the appropriate petitions, compiling the evidence, building the case. David, when he was served with the papers, tried one more time to come to the estate. But this time the police were waiting, called by Helena as soon as he appeared at the gate. He was arrested on the outstanding warrants, taken away in handcuffs, shouting threats and curses that echoed across the grounds. Marie watched from an upstairs window, Helena holding her close. "That is my father?" she asked quietly. Helena did not know how to answer, did not want to poison the child against the man, but also did not want to lie. "That is the man who helped bring you into the world," Helena said carefully. "But being a father is about more than biology. It is about showing up, about loving, about protecting. He never did those things, so he does not get to be your father." Marie nodded slowly. "Do I have a father then? Who takes care of me like fathers are supposed to?" Helena looked at Anna, who had joined them at the window. "You have your mother," Helena said. "And you have me. We are your family. Sometimes families look different than what you see in storybooks, but that does not make them less real. The court proceedings took months, a grinding bureaucracy that tested everyone's patience. but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who had clearly seen too many cases like this, reviewed the files with careful attention. She interviewed Anna privately, asking hard questions about her choices, her relationship with Helena, her fitness as a mother. She had a child psychologist talk to Marie, assessing her well-being, her attachment to Anna and Helena, her feelings about the father she had never known. Through it all, Helena waited, unable to control the outcome, forced to trust in a system that had already shown its flaws. But finally, on a warm day in May, the judge made her ruling. She terminated David's parental rights, citing his abandonment, his documented violence toward another partner and child, his criminal history, and his clear inability to provide a safe environment. Marie would never have to see him, never have to fear him, never have to wonder if he would come back to disrupt her life. The judge also addressed Anna directly, praising her strength in building a stable life for her daughter, despite overwhelming obstacles. And then, surprisingly, she acknowledged Helena. "It is unusual," the judge said, "for someone outside the traditional family structure to take such an active role in a child's life. But the evidence shows that Miss Helena has provided stability, security, and genuine love to this child. That should be recognized and protected. While I cannot grant formal adoption without Miss Anna's consent, I am ordering that Miss Helena be designated as Marie's legal guardian in the event that anything happens to her mother. This ensures continuity of care and recognizes the family you have built together, unconventional as it may be." Helena felt tears stream down her face as the judge spoke. Legal guardian. It was not adoption, not quite, but it was a recognition. It was the court saying that she mattered to Marie, that their relationship had legal standing, that she could not be easily dismissed or removed from this child's life. Anna reached over and squeezed her hand, both of them crying now. Marie, who had been coloring quietly during the proceedings, not fully understanding the gravity of it all, looked up and asked why everyone was crying. "Happy tears," Anna said. "These are happy tears." After the court date, they went home, all three of them together. Home. The word had taken on new meaning over the past months. It was not just a house anymore, not just a collection of expensive rooms and beautiful objects. It was the place where they belonged together, where Marie's drawings covered the refrigerator, where Anna's laughter filled the kitchen, where Helena had finally learned what it meant to be part of something bigger than herself. That evening, they celebrated with a special dinner. Just the three of them. The cook had been given the night off, and they made pasta together, Marie standing on a stool to help stir the sauce, flour somehow ending up in everyone's hair. They ate at the small kitchen table instead of the formal dining room, and they talked about the future with hope instead of fear. Marie asked if she could call Helena Aunt Helena all the time now, not just sometimes, and Helena said yes with her whole heart. Anna talked about going back to school in the fall, now that they had stability, and she did not have to work multiple jobs. She wanted to study early childhood education, wanted to become a teacher. Helena promised to support her in any way she could. Later, after Marie was asleep, Helena and Anna sat together in the library with tea and the comfortable silence that had become their language. "I never thought I would be here," Anna said softly. "In this house, with my daughter safe, with a friend who feels like family. There were so many times I almost gave up, almost believed the people who said I was not good enough, that I would never be able to provide for Marie the way she deserved. You saved us, you know." Helena shook her head. "No, You saved yourself. You fought for your daughter every single day. I just gave you a safe place to land." Anna smiled. "Maybe we saved each other then." Helena nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. That night, she went to her bedroom and looked at all of Marie's drawings that she had saved, dozens of them now. She saw the progression in them, from those early simple pictures to more complex images that told stories. But the one she kept coming back to was that very first special drawing, the one Marie had given her in her office that day in November. 3 figures, not yet connected, but reaching toward Paul, each other. "We need you." It had been true then, and it was still true now. They needed each other, all 3 of them, in ways that went beyond practical help or financial support. They needed each other's love, each other's presence, each other's witness to their lives. Helena had spent 47 years believing she was meant to be alone, that solitude was her inheritance, her fate. But Marie had seen something different with the clarity that only children possess. She had seen a woman who needed family and a family who needed her, and she had drawn them together with crayons and hope. Sometimes, Helena thought, salvation comes in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes it comes through the gift of a child's drawing, offered with paint-stained fingers and a shy smile. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, you learn that family is not about blood or law or social convention. It is about choosing each other, day after day, and building something beautiful out of that choice. Summer arrived with the kind of warmth that made everything feel possible. The gardens bloomed in riots of color, roses and lavender and hydrangeas filling the air with sweetness. Marie finished first grade with excellent marks, her teacher sending home a note praising her kindness and creativity. Anna enrolled in community college courses that would start in the fall, her face glowing with excitement as she planned her future. And Helena, for the first time in her adult life, felt truly at peace. But peace, she was learning, required constant cultivation. It was not something you achieved once and then forgot about. It was a garden that needed tending, attention, care. The legal victory had given them security, but it had also opened questions about what came next, about how to build a life that honored what they meant to each other, while navigating a world that did not have easy categories for their kind of family. Helena found herself thinking constantly about permanence, about how to ensure that what they had built could withstand whatever storms might come. She was 48 now, healthy and strong, but mortality had a way of making itself known as you aged. What would happen to Marie if something happened to Anna? The legal guardian designation was important, but was it enough? And what would happen to all of them if something happened to Helena? The estate, the money, the security they depended on, all of it was tied up in trusts and legal structures designed by her father decades ago. She met with Richard again, this time with a different purpose. "I want to change my will," she told him. "I want to provide for Anna and Marie, make sure they are protected no matter what happens." Richard nodded, unsurprised. "That is wise. What did you have in mind?" Helena had thought about this carefully. She wanted to leave the estate to Marie, held in trust until she turned 25. She wanted to establish a fund for Anna's education and living expenses, enough that she would never have to worry about money again. She wanted to create scholarships in her mother's name for children from low-income families. And she wanted to specify that Anna and Marie should always have a home here, that no one could force them to leave, even after Helena was gone. Richard took notes, asked clarifying questions, and then looked at her seriously. "You understand that this will likely cause problems with your extended family. You have cousins who expect to inherit, who believe this estate should stay within the bloodline. They will contest the will if they can." Helena felt her jaw set. "Let them try. This is my choice to make. These are the people I love, the family I have chosen. They deserve this more than distant relatives I barely know, and who have never cared about me beyond what they might inherit someday." Richard nodded slowly. "Then we will make it airtight. We will document your reasoning, your sound mind, your clear intentions. We will make it impossible for anyone to claim you were unduly influenced or not thinking clearly." The process took weeks, meetings with lawyers and financial advisors, paperwork and signatures and witnesses. Helena told Anna what she was doing, wanting her to understand the commitment she was making. Anna protested at first, saying it was too much, that she could not accept such generosity. But Helena was firm. "This is not about you accepting anything," she said. "This is about me making sure the people I love are protected. Please let me have this peace of mind." Anna finally agreed, tears in her eyes, understanding that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them give to you. They talked honestly about the practical implications, about how Anna would manage such wealth if it came to that, about the responsibilities it would carry. Helena promised to teach her everything she knew about managing money, about investments and trusts and charitable giving. They would have years, she hoped, to prepare. But if the worst happened, Anna would not be left floundering. She would have knowledge and resources and the foundation to build on. Marie, of course, knew nothing of these adult concerns. She spent her summer as children should, playing in the gardens, reading in the library, learning to swim in the pool that Helena had reopened for the first time in a decade. She made friends with the gardener's grandson, a boy her age who came to work with his grandfather twice a week. Helena watched them play together, chasing each other through the roses, and felt something settle in her chest. This was what childhood should look like, carefree and joyful, full of discovery and laughter. But there were still complications to navigate, social challenges that came with their unconventional arrangement. In June, Marie's school held an end-of-year ceremony, and when Anna filled out the paperwork asking who would attend, she listed both herself and Helena. The school called to clarify, confused about Helena's relationship to the child. "Guardian," Anna said firmly. "She is Marie's legal guardian." The woman on the phone was silent for a moment, then said they would need documentation. Anna provided the court order, and the school reluctantly added Helena's name to the list. At the ceremony, they sat together, Anna in the middle with Marie on one side and Helena on the other. The other parents stared, whispered to each other, clearly trying to figure out their relationship. Helena held her head high, refusing to be ashamed of loving this child, of being part of her life. When Marie received her certificate for academic achievement, she ran to them both, hugging Anna first, and then Helena, her face shining with pride. "This is my mama," she announced to the teacher. "And this is my Aunt Helena. We are a family." The teacher smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. "That is wonderful, Marie. You are very lucky to have people who love you so much." It was a small moment of acceptance, but it mattered. It reminded Helena that not everyone would judge them, that some people could see past convention to recognize love when it was real. July brought Helena's birthday, her 49th. She had always hated birthdays, reminders of time passing, of getting older in a lonely house with no one to celebrate with. But this year was different. Anna insisted on throwing a party, Nothing big or formal, just the three of them and a few others. She invited the cook and the gardener, people who had worked for Helena for years, but had never been included in her personal life. She even, with Helena's hesitant permission, invited Marie's teacher, Miss Roberts, who had been so kind throughout the year. The party was held in the garden on a perfect summer evening. String lights hung between the trees, a table laden with homemade food. Marie had made decorations, hand-drawn signs that said, "Happy birthday, Aunt Helena," in rainbow colors. When Helena walked outside and saw what they had done, she burst into tears. No one had ever thrown her a birthday party before, not since her mother died when she was 8 years old. They sang to her, off-key and enthusiastic, Marie's voice the loudest. They ate cake and told stories and laughed as the sun set and the fireflies came out. Miss Roberts pulled Helena aside at one point and said something that stayed with her. "I want you to know," she said quietly, "that what you have done for Marie and Anna is remarkable. I see a lot of families in my work, and I can tell you that biology does not make a family. Love does. The way Marie talks about you, the light in her eyes when she sees you, that is real. Do not let anyone make you doubt it." Helena thanked her, moved beyond words by this validation from someone who had no reason to offer it. As the summer progressed, Helena found herself thinking about legacy in new ways. She had always assumed her legacy would be the estate, the money, the foundation her father had built. But now she realized those were just things, cold and impersonal. Her real legacy would be Marie, the child she was helping to raise, the values she was instilling, the love she was giving. One afternoon, she took Marie up to the attic, a place she had not been in years. They climbed the narrow stairs together, dust motes dancing in the sunlight that streamed through the small windows. The attic was full of boxes, generations of accumulated belongings that no one had bothered to sort through. Helena opened one box and found her mother's things, carefully packed away after her death. Her clothes, still smelling faintly of lavender. Her jewelry, simple pieces that held more sentimental than monetary value. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, the watercolor set she had given Helena for her 7th birthday. Helena lifted it out with trembling hands. The paints were dried out now, unusable after 40 years, but seeing them brought back a flood of memories. Her mother sitting beside her at the kitchen table, her gentle hands guiding the brush. Her voice saying that art was not about being perfect, it was about expressing what was in your heart. She showed Marie the watercolors, told her about her mother, about the little girl she had been who loved to paint. Marie listened with wide eyes, then said something that took Helena's breath away. "Maybe we could paint together sometime. You could teach me like your mama taught you. And maybe that way she would still be here, in a way, because you would be passing on what she gave you." Helena realized in that moment that this was how people lived on, not through money or property, but through the pieces of themselves they gave to others. Her mother lived on in the memories Helena carried, in the love of art she had instilled, in the gentleness she had modeled. And Helena would live on in Marie, in the lessons she taught her, in the security she provided, in the example she set of choosing love over loneliness. They spent the rest of the afternoon going through boxes, Helena sharing stories about her family, her childhood, the ghosts that had haunted this house for so long. She gave Marie some of her mother's jewelry, simple pieces that would mean nothing to anyone else, but everything to them. A pair of pearl earrings, a silver bracelet, a small locket that Helena placed around Marie's neck. "When you are older," she said, "you can put a picture inside, a picture of your family, whoever that means to you." Marie touched the locket reverently. "Can I put a picture of the three of us?" she asked. "You and Mama and me?" "Of course," Helena said. "That is exactly what it is for." They came down from the attic as the sun was setting, covered in dust but lighter somehow, as if letting the past breathe had released some of its weight. Anna looked at them both with concern. "What have you two been up to?" Helena smiled. "Just remembering," she said, "and making new memories at the same time." That night, after Marie was in bed, Helena sat at her desk and began to write. She wrote letters to Marie, dozens of them, to be opened at different milestones in her life. One for her 10th birthday, one for her high school graduation, one for her wedding day, if she chose to marry, one for the birth of her first child, if she chose to have children. In each letter, she shared wisdom she had learned the hard way, encouragement for the challenges ahead, and reminders that she was loved beyond measure. She sealed each letter in an envelope, labeled with the occasion, and put them in a box to be given to Anna for safekeeping. If something happened to her, if she was not there for those moments, Marie would still have her words, her love, her presence, in some small way. August brought the beginning of preparation for Anna's return to school. They spent weekends shopping for supplies, setting up a study space for her in the library, talking through her nervousness about being a student again after so many years. Helena promised to help with Marie on the evenings Anna had classes, making it clear that this was not a burden, but a joy. She had missed so much of Marie's babyhood and toddlerhood, all those years when Anna was struggling alone. Now she had the chance to be present for these formative years, to be part of Marie's daily life in a way that mattered. They established routines, bedtimes and homework schedules, and family dinners. They made rules about screen time and vegetables and telling the truth even when it was hard. They became, in all the ways that mattered, a family. Not perfect, because no family is perfect, but real and loving and committed to each other. And Helena learned that this ordinary daily work of raising a child and supporting a friend and building a life together was what she had been missing all along. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but the small, steady acts of showing up and being present and choosing love over and over again. As September approached, Helena felt both excited and apprehensive about what lay ahead. Anna starting school would change their dynamic, would require new adjustments and compromises. Marie starting 2nd grade would bring new challenges and opportunities. And Helena herself was facing the reality that she had built something precious and fragile, something that required constant care and attention to maintain. But she was ready. For the first time in her life, she was ready to fight for what she loved, to defend it against anyone who tried to diminish it, to nurture it through whatever storms might come. Because she had learned the most important lesson of all, that love, real love, was worth any price, any sacrifice, any struggle. And that family, the family you chose and built with intention and care, was the only legacy that truly mattered in the end. The crisis came on a Tuesday morning in late September, without warning, without preparation, without any chance to brace for impact. Helena was in her office reviewing the quarterly reports from her investment portfolio when the phone rang. It was the school, the principal's secretary, her voice tight with concern. There had been an accident, she said. Anna had been in a car crash on her way to drop Marie off at school. Marie was fine, shaken but unharmed, already at the school nurse's office. But Anna had been taken by ambulance to County General Hospital. They were asking for next of kin, for someone to come get Marie, for someone who knew what to do. Helena felt the world tilt beneath her. She gripped the edge of her desk, forcing herself to breathe, to think, to move. "I am coming," she said. "I will be there in 10 minutes. Tell Marie I am coming." She grabbed her purse and keys, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. The drive to the school was a blur, traffic lights and stop signs barely registering. All she could think about was Anna, hurt, maybe dying, alone in a hospital. And Marie, terrified, needing her mama, needing someone to tell her everything would be okay, even though Helena had no idea if that was true. At the school, she found Marie in the nurse's office, sitting on the examination table with her legs dangling, tears streaming down her face. The moment Marie saw her, she launched herself forward, and Helena caught her, holding her tight. "It is okay," Helena whispered, though her own heart was racing. "You are safe. I have got at you." The nurse explained what had happened. A truck had run a red light, slamming into the passenger side of Anna's small sedan. Marie had been in the back seat, protected by her car seat and the angle of impact. But Anna had taken the full force of the collision. She had been conscious when the paramedics arrived, asking about Marie, making sure her daughter was safe before she would let them treat her. That sounded like Anna, Helena thought, always putting her daughter first, even when she was hurt and scared. The principal appeared, a kind woman in her 50s who had always been supportive of their family. "We have tried to reach any other family members," she said gently. "But Anna's emergency contact form only lists you and a sister in another state. We left a message for the sister, but no response yet. Is there anyone else we should call?" Helena shook her head. "No," she said, "just me. I am her family. I will take care of everything." She signed Marie out of school, gathered her backpack, and carried her to the car. Marie was silent, her face pale, her small body trembling. In the car, she finally spoke. "Is Mama going to die?" The question hung in the air, stark and terrifying. Helena wanted to lie, to reassure, to promise everything would be fine. But she had learned that children deserved honesty, age-appropriate but real. "I do not know, sweetheart," she said carefully. "Your mama was hurt in the accident. The doctors are taking care of her right now. We are going to go to the hospital and find out how she is doing. But I promise you, no matter what happens, you are not alone. I am here, and I will take care of you. Do you understand?" Marie nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know," Helena said. "I am scared too. But we are going to be brave together, okay?" The hospital was chaos, emergency room filled with people waiting, nurses rushing past with clipboards, the smell of antiseptic and fear heavy in the air. Helena approached the desk, Marie clinging to her hand. "I am looking for Anna Novak," she said. "She was brought in from a car accident about an hour ago." The nurse checked her computer. "Are you family?" "Yes," Helena said, without hesitation. "I am her sister." The lie came easily, because in all the ways that mattered, it was true. The nurse nodded. "She is in surgery right now. Head trauma and internal injuries. The doctor will come speak with you when there is news. You can wait in the surgical waiting area, 3rd floor." They rode the elevator in silence, found the waiting room, and settled into uncomfortable plastic chairs. Helena called Richard, explained the situation, asked him to handle anything that needed handling. Then she called Anna's actual sister, finally reaching her, explaining what had happened. The sister, Lisa, lived 8 hours away and had young children of her own. She promised to try to come as soon as she could arrange childcare, but Helena could hear the strain in her voice, the impossible calculation of obligations. "It is okay," Helena told her. "I am here. I will take care of everything until you can get here. Just keep your phone on." Hours passed. Marie dozed fitfully against Helena's side, exhausted from fear and shock. Helena stared at the wall, at the clock that moved too slowly, at the door that the surgeon would eventually walk through with news that would change everything. She prayed, something she had not done since childhood, making bargains with a God she was not sure she believed in. Take anything, she thought. Take the money, the house, everything. Just let Anna live. Let this child keep her mother. I have already lost mine. Do not make her go through that too. Finally, after what felt like an eternity but was only 3 hours, a surgeon appeared. She was young, her scrubs splattered with blood, her face tired but professional. "Family of Anna Novak?" Helena stood, gently moving Marie to the side so she would not wake. "How is she?" The surgeon gestured for Helena to step away from Marie, and they moved to a corner of the waiting room. "She made it through surgery," the doctor said quietly, "but it was touch and go. She had a subdural hematoma, bleeding in her brain, which we evacuated. She also had internal bleeding in her abdomen, a ruptured spleen that we removed, and several broken ribs. She lost a lot of blood, and the next 24 hours are critical. If she makes it through the night without complications, her chances improve significantly. But I need you to understand, this is serious. She may not wake up. And if she does, there could be lasting effects from the brain injury, cognitive issues, personality changes, physical disabilities. We just do not know yet." Helena felt her legs go weak. "Can I see her?" The surgeon nodded. "She is being moved to the ICU now. You can see her briefly, but she is sedated and on a ventilator. It might be frightening, especially for the child. Maybe you should go alone first." Helena looked back at Marie, still sleeping in the chair, her face peaceful in a way that would shatter the moment she woke. "I need to tell her something," Helena said. "What do I say?" "Tell her the truth," the surgeon advised. "That her mother is very sick, that the doctors are doing everything they can, that she needs to be strong. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for." Helena nodded, thanking the doctor, then returned to Marie. She knelt beside her, gently waking her. Marie's eyes opened, confused for a moment, then filled with fear as she remembered where they were. "Did the doctor come? Is Mama okay?" Helena took both of Marie's hands in hers. "Your Mama made it through the surgery," she said carefully, "but she is very sick. She has a hurt in her brain and in her belly that the doctors fixed, but she needs time to heal. She is sleeping right now, and she cannot wake up yet. But I am going to go see her, and then you can see her too if you want. Okay?" Marie's lower lip trembled. "Will she know I am there?" "I hope so," Helena said. "Sometimes people can hear us, even when they are asleep. So we will talk to her, tell her we are here, tell her we love her. That might help her get better." Marie nodded bravely, and Helena felt her heart break for this child, who was trying so hard to be strong. She left Marie with a kind volunteer, an elderly woman who offered to sit with her, and followed a nurse down a long corridor to the ICU. The room was dim, filled with the beeping of machines and the whoosh of the ventilator. Anna lay in the bed, almost unrecognizable. Her head was wrapped in bandages, tubes ran from her arms, her face was swollen and bruised. Helena approached slowly, afraid to touch her, afraid she might break something. She pulled a chair close to the bed and took Anna's hand, careful of the IV line. "I am here," she whispered. "Marie is here too. We are both here, and we are not going anywhere. You need to fight, Anna. You need to come back to us. Your daughter needs you. I need you. Please do not leave us." There was no response, no flutter of eyelids, no squeeze of fingers. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor, proof that Anna was still alive, but offering no promises about what came next. Helena sat there for a long time, holding Anna's hand, talking to her about ordinary things. About the garden, about Marie's second-grade teacher, about the book Anna had been reading before the accident. She did not know if Anna could hear her, but she talked anyway, because silence felt like giving up. When she finally returned to the waiting room, Marie looked up with desperate hope. "Can I see her now?" Helena nodded, and they walked back together. She tried to prepare Marie for what she would see, but no amount of warning could really soften the shock of seeing your mother like that, broken and still. Marie stood at the bedside, staring at Anna with wide, frightened eyes. Then, with a composure that seemed impossible for a 7-year-old, she climbed onto the chair Helena had been sitting in and took her mother's hand. "Hi, Mama," she said softly. "It is me, Marie. Aunt Helena says you are sleeping, but maybe you can hear me anyway. I want you to know I am okay. I was not hurt in the crash, and Aunt Helena is taking care of me, just like you always said she would if something happened. So you do not need to worry about me. You just need to get better and wake up. Because I need you. I need you to help me with my math homework, because I am not good at it. And I need you to read bedtime stories to me, because Aunt Helena tries, but she does not do the voices right. And I need you to be my mama, because nobody else can do that. Please wake up, Mama. Please." Helena stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, watching this child beg her mother to live. She thought about all the prayers she had sent up in the past hours, all the bargains she had tried to make. But she realized now that the only prayer that mattered was Marie's. That simple, desperate plea from a child to the person she loved most in the world. "Please wake up. Please come back. Please do not leave me." They stayed until the nurses gently told them visiting hours were over, that they needed to go home and rest. Marie protested, not wanting to leave, but Helena promised they would come back first thing in the morning. They drove home through the dark, both of them silent, both of them carrying more fear than they knew how to hold. At home, the house felt empty and wrong without Anna. Helena made dinner that Marie did not eat, ran a bath that Marie sat in silently, tucked her into bed, and lay beside her until she finally cried herself to sleep. Then Helena went to her own room and allowed herself to fall apart. She lay in bed and sobbed, great heaving sobs that came from a place deeper than she knew existed. She cried for Anna, fighting for her life in a hospital bed. She cried for Marie, who might lose her mother the way Helena had lost hers. And she cried for herself, for the terrifying realization that she had finally opened her heart to love and now might lose it all. She had been right all those years, keeping people at a distance. Love hurt. Love made you vulnerable. Love gave the world the power to destroy you. The next 3 days passed in a blur of hospital visits and holding vigils and trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for Marie, while the world hung in the balance. Helena cancelled all her appointments, ignored calls from her social circle, focused entirely on getting Marie to school in the mornings and bringing her to the hospital every afternoon. The school was understanding, the principal calling to check on them, Marie's teacher sending homework with gentle notes attached. The community that Helena had spent so long holding at arm's length was now reaching out with casseroles and offers of help and quiet shows of support. It surprised her, humbled her, reminded her that she had misjudged many people in her determination to protect herself. Anna remained unconscious, the ventilator still breathing for her, the monitors tracking every heartbeat and breath. The doctors spoke in careful, measured tones about waiting, about giving her body time to heal, about the unknowns of brain injuries. They reduced her sedation gradually, hoping she would wake on her own. But each day passed without change. Helena sat beside her for hours, talking, reading aloud from the book Anna had been in the middle of, playing the music Anna loved on her phone. Marie drew pictures at the bedside, dozens of them, covering the walls of the hospital room with scenes of home and family and hope. The nurses smiled at them, these two keeping vigil, and never questioned their right to be there. Family was family, blood or not. On the third night, Helena was alone at Anna's bedside, Marie having finally agreed to stay home with the cook who had volunteered to spend the night so Helena could remain at the hospital. She was exhausted, having barely slept in 3 days, but she could not bring herself to leave. She held Anna's hand and talked to her about everything and nothing, about the past and the future, about all the things they had shared and all the things they still wanted to share. "I know I have not said this enough," Helena whispered, "but you changed my life. Before you and Marie came along, I was barely living. I was going through the motions, filling my days with emptiness and calling it a life. But you showed me what it means to really live, to really love, to really be part of something bigger than myself. And I need you to know that whatever happens, however this turns out, I am grateful. You gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. You let me love your daughter. You let me be part of your family. You trusted me with your heart. So please, if you can hear me, please fight. Please come back, because we are not done yet. We have so much more life to live together. Marie needs you. I need you. Please do not leave us now." She laid her head on the edge of the bed, still holding Anna's hand, and closed her eyes for just a moment. She must have drifted off because she woke to pressure on her hand, a small movement, a squeeze. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. "Anna," she said, "can you hear me?" Another squeeze, stronger this time. Helena scrambled for the call button, pressing it frantically. A nurse rushed in, took one look at Anna's monitors, and called for the doctor. Within minutes, the room was full of medical staff, checking vitals, shining lights in Anna's eyes, asking questions that Anna could not yet answer. But her eyes were open, confused and frightened, but open. She was waking up. The doctor finally ushered Helena out so they could examine Anna properly, promising to update her soon. Helena stood in the hallway, shaking with relief and fear and exhaustion all mixed together. She called home, woke Marie even though it was past midnight. "Your mama is waking up," she said, her voice breaking. She opened her eyes. "She is coming back to us." Marie's cry of joy through the phone made Helena start crying again, both of them sobbing together across the distance. "I knew it," Marie said between sobs. "I knew she would come back. I told her she had to. Can we see her?" "Soon," Helena promised. "Let the doctors make sure she is okay first. Then we will go see her together. I promise." An hour later, the doctor emerged with cautious optimism. "She is awake and responsive," he said. "She knows her name, knows where she is, can move all her extremities. We will need to do more cognitive testing, but initial signs are very good. She is asking for her daughter, and for someone named Helena." Helena felt her knees go weak with relief. "Can I see her?" "Just for a few minutes," the doctor said. "She needs rest, but I think seeing you will help her settle." Helena entered the room quietly. Anna was still intubated, but her eyes were open and alert, tracking movement. When she saw Helena, her eyes filled with tears. Helena rushed to her side, taking her hand. "You are okay," she said. "You are going to be okay." Anna tried to speak around the tube, frustrated when she could not. Helena understood what she was asking anyway. "Marie is fine," she said quickly. "Not a scratch on her. She has been here every day, drawing pictures for you, talking to you. She is home right now, sleeping, but we will bring her first thing in the morning." Anna's eyes closed in relief, tears leaking from the corners. Helena wiped them gently. "You scared us," she said softly. "But you fought, and you came back. That is what matters now." Anna squeezed her hand, and Helena squeezed back, and in that grip was everything they could not say out loud. "Thank you for being here. I would not be anywhere else. I was so afraid." "Me too. We are a family." "Yes, we are." The next morning, Helena brought Marie to the hospital as soon as visiting hours began. By then, Anna had been extubated, the breathing tube removed, and though her voice was hoarse and weak, she could speak. Marie ran to her bedside, climbing up carefully to hug her mother, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. "I missed you," Marie said. "I missed you so much." "I am here, baby," Anna whispered, her voice rough. "I am here. I am not going anywhere." They stayed all morning, Marie chattering about everything that had happened while Anna was asleep, showing her all the drawings she had made, telling her about the kind nurses and how Aunt Helena had taken care of everything. Anna listened with tears streaming down her face, holding her daughter close, looking at Helena with gratitude too deep for words. Later, when Marie was distracted with her coloring books, Anna reached for Helena's hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything, for taking care of her, for being here, for being you." Helena shook her head. "You would have done the same for me." Anna smiled weakly. "Yes," she said, "I would have, because that is what family does." Over the next week, Anna's recovery progressed faster than anyone expected. The brain injury had been less severe than feared, leaving her with headaches and some memory gaps, but no major cognitive impairment. The physical injuries would take longer to heal, weeks of recovery before she could return to normal activities. But she was alive, and she was going to be okay, and that was all that mattered. Helena arranged for Anna to be transferred to a private room, more comfortable and quiet, where Marie could visit without restrictions. She hired private nurses to supplement the hospital staff, making sure Anna had everything she needed. And she began planning for what came next, for bringing Anna home and setting up the recovery space she would need. But there was something else weighing on her mind, something that the near loss had crystallized with painful clarity. On Anna's 8th day in the hospital, when Marie was at school and they had a rare moment alone, Helena broached the subject that had been consuming her thoughts. "When you are released," she began carefully, "I want you and Marie to move into the estate permanently, not just staying over sometimes, but making it your home. Your real home." Anna started to protest, but Helena held up a hand. "Please let me finish. This accident showed me how fragile everything is, how quickly we can lose what we love. I have been thinking about what would have happened if you had not made it, if Marie had been left without you. Legally, I am her guardian, but practically, she would have been alone until your sister could get here. That is not acceptable to me. I want us to make this arrangement formal and permanent. I want to adopt Marie with your blessing so that she has 2 parents legally, so that if something happens to either of us, she is protected. I know it is a lot to ask. I know it changes everything. But I am asking anyway." Anna stared at her, speechless. The silence stretched between them, and Helena felt fear creep in. Maybe she had pushed too far, asked for too much, overstepped in her desire to bind them together. But finally, Anna spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "You want to adopt my daughter? Officially? Be her parent, not just her guardian?" Helena nodded. "Only if you want that. Only if you think it is right for Marie. I am not trying to replace you or diminish your role. I just want to make sure she is protected, that she has 2 people who are legally and morally committed to her well-being." Anna reached out and took Helena's hand. "I have been thinking about the same thing," she admitted. "Lying here in this bed, thinking about what could have happened. I realized that you are already Marie's 2nd parent. You have been for months now. You love her like she is yours. You care for her, guide her, protect her. Making it legal would just be acknowledging what already is. So yes. Yes, I want you to adopt her. I want us to be a real family in every way that matters." Helena felt joy flood through her, pure and overwhelming. They held each other, both crying again, but this time with happiness instead of fear. It felt like a promise being made, a covenant being sealed. They were choosing each other, all 3 of them, binding themselves together with intention and love. The legal process would take time, Richard warned when Helena called him with the news. Step-parent adoption was simpler than other forms, but there were still home studies and interviews and waiting periods. But he would start the paperwork immediately, and with any luck, it could be finalized within 6 months. Helena did not care how long it took. What mattered was that they were committed, that the wheels were in motion, that the family they had built was being recognized and protected by law. When Anna finally came home 2 weeks after the accident, the whole estate seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Marie ran through the house, shouting that Mama was home, and even the staff who normally maintained professional distance smiled and welcomed Anna back. Helena had set up the downstairs guest room as a recovery space so Anna would not have to navigate stairs, and she had hired a physical therapist to come 3 times a week. Anna protested the expense, but weakly now, understanding that letting Helena help was not a sign of weakness, but of trust. They settled into new routines, Helena helping Anna with tasks she could not yet manage alone, Marie being gentle and careful in a way that broke Helena's heart. The child had grown up in the past 2 weeks, had seen how fragile life was, had learned that the people you love can be taken away in an instant. But she had also learned that love could survive crisis, that family meant showing up when things were hard, that commitment was not just a word, but a daily choice. And watching her, Helena realized that these lessons, hard as they were, would serve Marie well throughout her life. She was learning resilience, learning compassion, learning what it meant to love someone through their weakest moments. 6 months later, on a bright spring morning, Helena stood in a courtroom with Anna on one side and Marie on the other, waiting for a judge to make official what had long been true in their hearts. The adoption hearing was simple, almost anticlimactic after all the paperwork and home visits and interviews. The social worker had filed a glowing report describing the stable, loving home Helena had provided, the deep bond between her and Marie, the support she gave to Anna. There were no objections, no complications, just a formality that would change everything. The judge, the same woman who had terminated David's parental rights a year ago, smiled at them from the bench. "It is not often I get to see such a clear example of love transforming lives," she said. "Miss Helena, you came before me once as someone helping a friend. Today you stand before me as a mother, ready to make a lifetime commitment to this child. Miss Anna, you are giving your daughter the gift of an additional parent, someone who will stand beside her through all of life's challenges. And Marie, you are gaining a second mother who chose you, who fought for you, who will love you unconditionally for the rest of your life. This is what family should look like. With the power vested in me, I finalize this adoption. Marie, you are now legally the daughter of both Anna Novak and Helena Whitmore. Congratulations to you all." The gavel came down, and suddenly it was done. Marie was hers, not just in her heart, but in the eyes of the law, in documents and certificates that said this child belonged to her, and she belonged to this child. Helena felt tears stream down her face as she knelt to embrace Marie, who was crying too, though she probably did not fully understand the significance of what had just happened. "You are my daughter now," Helena whispered. "Forever. I am always going to be here. I am always going to love you, no matter what." Marie hugged her tight, her small arms strong and sure. "I know," she said simply. "You have always been my mama, too. Just now, it is official." They took photographs on the courthouse steps, the 3 of them together, a family made official by choice and commitment. Anna was still healing, walking with a slight limp that doctors said would fade with more physical therapy, but she was smiling wider than Helena had ever seen. "We did it," she said, taking Helena's hand. "We built something real." Helena squeezed back, looking at Marie between them, at the future stretching out full of possibility. "Yes," she said, "we did." They celebrated with lunch at Marie's favorite restaurant, nothing fancy but full of joy, and then went home to the estate that was now truly home to all of them. Over the past months, Helena had made more changes to the house, opening up rooms that had been closed for years, adding color and warmth and life to spaces that had been cold museums. Marie's drawings no longer just decorated the refrigerator, but hung in frames throughout the house, evidence of the child who lived and loved and created there. Anna's textbooks were scattered across the library table where she studied for her degree. Helena's piano was played regularly now, sometimes by Helena, sometimes by Marie, learning simple songs, sometimes by all three of them picking out melodies together and laughing at their mistakes. The house had transformed from a mausoleum of the past into a living space for a family with a future. And Helena had transformed with it. No longer the cold, distant woman who had kept the world at arm's length, but someone who laughed and cried and loved without reservation. She still had her moments of fear, times when she woke in the night, panicked that something would happen to take this away from her. But Anna would remind her that fear was the price of love, and it was a price worth paying. Because the alternative, living without love to avoid the possibility of loss, was not really living at all. That summer, they took their first family vacation, a week at the beach where Marie learned to swim in the ocean and built sand castles with Helena, while Anna watched from under an umbrella, her injuries still making prolonged sun exposure difficult. They were like any other family on that beach, nothing marking them as different or unusual, just three people who loved each other, taking joy in simple pleasures. Helena realized that this was what she had been seeking all along without knowing it. Not grand gestures or impressive accomplishments, but ordinary moments of connection and happiness. A child's laughter, a shared meal, a sunset watched together. These were the things that made life worth living. On their last evening at the beach, Marie found a perfect shell, spiral and pink and unbroken. She gave it to Helena with instructions to keep it forever, as a reminder of this week. Helena promised she would, and she meant it. Not because the shell itself was valuable, but because it represented a moment in time when she had everything she needed and knew it. Fall came, and Marie started 3rd grade, confident and happy, making friends easily now that the shadow of her father was permanently gone and her home life was stable. Anna finished her first year of college with excellent grades, already talking about transferring to a university to complete her bachelor's degree. Helena stepped back from some of her business obligations, choosing to spend more time at home, more time with her family, more time living instead of just managing her life. She declined invitations to charity galas that she had once felt obligated to attend, resigned from boards that had been more about status than genuine service, and focused instead on the small charitable foundation she had renamed in honor of her mother and Marie. The Whitmore Novak Foundation provided scholarships to children from low-income families with a special focus on single-parent households. Helena and Anna ran it together, interviewing applicants, choosing recipients, seeing the impact their support made in real lives. It was the most satisfying work Helena had ever done, using her resources not for tax breaks or social standing, but to genuinely help people who reminded her of Anna, working so hard to give their children better lives. Each scholarship they awarded was a small repayment of the debt Helena felt she owed to the universe for bringing Anna and Marie into her life. She knew she could never repay it fully, but she could pay it forward, could help other families find stability the way they had found it together. Margaret and the other society friends gradually faded from Helena's life, and she found she did not miss them. They had been friends of convenience, not of genuine connection, and their absence left space for real relationships. She became close with Marie's teacher, with other parents from the school, with the woman who ran the local library, where Marie spent hours reading. These were people who valued her for who she was, not what she had, and their friendship was richer for its authenticity. One evening in November, almost exactly 2 years after Marie had first given her that sunflower drawing, Helena stood in the kitchen making dinner, while Anna studied at the table, and Marie did homework on the floor. It was an ordinary moment, nothing special or remarkable, but Helena found herself pausing to take it in, to memorize it. The warmth of the stove, the smell of garlic and tomatoes, the sound of pages turning and pencil scratching paper, the golden light of evening slanting through the windows. This was her life now. This was what she had built from loneliness and fear, and the courage to open her heart to people who had every reason to keep theirs closed. Anna looked up and smiled at her. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Helena smiled back. "Just that I am happy," she said. "Really, truly happy." Anna stood and came to her, wrapping her arms around Helena from behind, resting her chin on her shoulder. "Me too," she said. "Every single day, I wake up grateful. For you, for this house, for the safety and stability you have given us. But mostly, just for you. For your huge, generous heart that you thought was cold, but was really just waiting for the right people to warm it." Marie looked up from her homework. "Are you two being mushy again?" she asked with mock annoyance. But she was smiling. Helena laughed. "Yes, we are. Come here and be mushy with us." Marie joined them, and they stood there in the kitchen, the three of them wrapped in an embrace that felt like coming home. Family, Helena thought. This was family. Not the one she had been born into, cold and distant and marked by loss, but the one she had chosen and built with intention and love. The one that had saved her from a life of emptiness and shown her what it meant to truly live. Later that night, after Marie was asleep and Anna had gone to bed, Helena walked through the house one more time. She stopped in front of the refrigerator, now covered in 3 years' worth of Marie's drawings, layers and layers of color and imagination. She found that very first sunflower, a bit faded now, but still there, still smiling its cheerful smile. She thought about the woman she had been when Marie first gave her that drawing, lonely, closed off, convinced that solitude was safer than connection. And she thought about the woman she was now, a mother, a partner, a friend, someone who laughed easily and cried openly and loved, without reservation. The transformation had not been easy. There had been judgment from others, legal battles, moments of profound fear when Anna lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life. But every struggle had been worth it for the joy of this ordinary evening, for the privilege of tucking Marie into bed and kissing her forehead, for the comfort of knowing Anna was down the hall safe and healing, for the peace of living in a house that was finally a home. She thought about her own mother, gone now for 40 years, and wished she could tell her about the family she had found, about the little girl who had saved her with crayons and hope. But perhaps her mother knew somehow. Perhaps she was part of why Helena had been able to open her heart when the opportunity came. Part of the legacy of love that had been planted so long ago and had finally found the right conditions to bloom. Helena turned off the lights and went upstairs to her bedroom, the same room where she had once cried herself to sleep in loneliness. But tonight she fell asleep with a full heart, knowing that down the hall were the 2 people she loved most in the world, that tomorrow would bring more ordinary moments of family life, and that she had finally found what she had been seeking all along. Not wealth or status or achievement, but belonging. The simple, profound joy of being part of something bigger than herself, of mattering to someone, of being loved. The next morning, Marie came bounding into her room at dawn, as she did most weekends, climbing into bed and snuggling close. "Tell me the story again," she demanded. "The one about how we became a family." Helena smiled and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Well," she began, "it all started with a little girl who had paint on her fingers and kindness in her heart. This little girl saw a lonely woman living in a big house, and instead of walking past her, she decided to give her a gift. Just a simple drawing, nothing fancy. But it was made with love, and that changed everything." Marie smiled, knowing the story by heart, but never tiring of hearing it. "And then what happened?" Helena kissed the top of her head. "Then the lonely woman learned that family is not about blood or rules or what other people think is proper. It is about choosing to love someone and showing up for them every single day. And the little girl and her mother and the lonely woman became a family, and they lived happily ever after. Not perfectly, because no family is perfect, but happily, because they loved each other." The end. "Not the end," Marie corrected, as she always did. "The beginning." Helena laughed. "You are right, the beginning." And she realized it was true. Everything that had happened, all the pain and fear and struggle, had not been the end of her old life, but the beginning of her new one. A life filled with love and laughter, and the ordinary, extraordinary moments that make up a family. And it had all started with a child's drawing, offered with paint-stained fingers and a shy smile, asking nothing in return but opening a door to everything that mattered.